What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wildcat Dash here on Dash Sports TV. My name is Jacob Mennuti. I'm joined once again, as always, with my co-host Ryan Wohl. How are we feeling today, Ryan?
Doing all right, but it just sucks every week that this team just can't pull it together.
Yeah, definitely. We might be doing okay, but one thing that isn't doing very well is the Arizona Wildcats. This team is just spiraling into the ground as we speak. Their loss this past week to UCLA was their 10th straight loss dating back to last season. And the status of this program is it's so much worse than just that losing streak, too. Like, players are opting out left and right. We saw, wide receiver Drew Dixon opt out of the rest of the season this past week to go along with all the other opt-outs. I think, Bobby Wolf, Mackenzie Barnes, Malik Hausman, those dudes are all gone. Like, they all opted out in the middle of the season. Like, and if that couldn't get any worse, Grant Gunnell got hurt too, and he's questionable for the rest of the year, questionable this week, and who knows if he'll even play. But we'll get into that later. But let's talk about this horrible losing streak for a little bit. Arizona hasn't won a game since October of 2019. It's been over a year since we've seen Arizona win a game. There's 100 things that you could say about why this team, just continues to keep losing games. But, I mean, tell me, Ryan, what has been the worst part about this losing streak?
Just the false hope that was given and put on all these Arizona Wildcat football fans when Kevin Sumlin came to Arizona. Everybody thought because he had a good resume, at Texas A&M and Houston, that he would do something good here and maybe push this program in the right direction. And just since he came, it just nothing could get going. Nothing. It doesn't this is, I believe, the fourth year of Kevin Sumlin, if I'm right, and nothing over the first 3 years. At this point, when you're in the fourth year, you should be moving in the right direction and getting to where they need to go, and nothing has changed. He's recruited one 4-star player, no 5-star players, and that's not this program's history that they don't get 5-star players. But just everyone wants to look back at his past, and he's recruited 9 5-star players over 5 years at Texas A&M. 9 5-star players. Everyone wanted to give him credit then, but I don't think he's a good recruiter. He can't recruit out of his state, and he loses a lot of guys in the state, and all he really gets in and putting together this program is 3-star players. And so, yeah, some 3-star players pan out, but that's not how you're going to win football games.
Yeah, it's just tough because that was the main selling point with Kevin Sumlin, is that he's going to come here. His biggest thing was recruiting, right? As soon as they hired Kevin Sumlin, it was, oh my gosh, he's such a good recruiter. He's going to bring all these youth to Arizona. It just didn't happen. It just seems like every year it's a new excuse. First year it was, oh, we didn't have the guys we wanted, and second year is, oh, we had injuries, and we didn't have the coaching staff we wanted. And now it's year 3, it's time to go. There's no more excuses. It's just been really tough to see. But I've just got so many complaints about the development of this program. It's past this losing streak. This problem is so much more than the 10 games in a row. 9 of these 10 losses have been by double digits. It's not like these games are close. They're getting blown out. They've been outscored 394 to 187 in that span. They also have never had success playing away from home. I think they're 2-11 in road games. They're 3-13 against FBS opponents in the last 16 games. How do you do that and then expect the head coach's fault at that point? It's one thing to be losing close games, and it's another just to be blown out by the opponent every single week in and week out. My other huge issue is just the pure lack of player development too. Not just during this losing streak, but just year in and year out. Every below average team in the Pac-12 this season has somehow figured out a way to utilize its best players and make them look like NFL prospects. And because of that, they're not that terrible anymore. UCLA is making Demetric Felton look like a day 2 draft pick. He's awesome. Oregon State is utilizing, Jamar Jefferson. He's probably going to be Pac-12 Player of the Year. It's crazy. I look at Arizona and I see them have so many good players. I think there's a lot of potential in this squad. And they just never translate to the NFL. JJ Taylor is a legit running back. At least he was at Arizona. Like the fact that he didn't get drafted, like that you have to pin that on the Arizona coaching staff. Like I think Gary Brightwell is a legit NFL running back as well. Like he's just so talented and underutilized. So you look around and it's like, what are these other bad teams doing that Arizona isn't doing? Like how come they're using these players and finding success with, the minimal amount of, good players that they have, and Arizona's not doing the same thing? Like something's wrong here. Like this is not bad luck. Arizona, isn't having a bad like a string of bad luck. Like there's something wrong here. Like all these other teams have figured it out. Like UCLA is like above 500 for the first time in the Chip Kelly era, I think. And Oregon State just knocked off Oregon last week to spoil their college football playoff hopes. And Colorado is 3-0. Like everybody is figuring it out except for Arizona. Like there's something wrong here. They're doing something wrong, and it's tough to see.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. We're on the same page. And from the start of the season, we didn't predict a lot from this season. We thought maybe 1-2 wins, but even now, 1-2 wins seems like an impossible feat that this team that can't overcome right now.
This team could easily go 0-6. Yeah.
Yeah, and every year, looking at like the records, by the way, I was wrong. This is Sumlin's third year, and every year. So the first year, 2018, they went 5-7. They were third in the Pac-12 South. Then 2019, last year, 4-8, and they were sixth in the Pac-12 South. And then this year, like not winning a game, obviously, like being last. Like every year, like it doesn't seem like they're building on anything, and they're not improving. And like that's the main like head scratcher when talking about this. And like I mean, everyone wants to talk about the money, and how much he's getting paid, still has years left, whatever, this and that. But like I've been saying the past few weeks, is that at some point you got to push the money to the side and just realize like that he's not best for this job, and that you need to find what's right for this football team. Because as you said, like I agree, I love a lot of these players on this team. Like this offense is really good. Even the defense that people criticize, they have some good guys with potential there. So like it's just like, and it also doesn't seem like he has control in this locker room. I mean, as you mentioned, having multiple guys in mid-season opt out, guys transfer before the season, like that doesn't look good on the coach, and there's no one else to pass that blame to right now.
Yeah, that was actually my next point, is that, not only is this team losing, but like the branding and like the locker room culture doesn't seem to be improving either. Like we don't know exactly what's going on in the locker room, day in and day out, but like, so I think it'd be ignorant for us to sit here and say that, we know exactly what the atmosphere is like in that locker room. But whatever it is, like Arizona is doing a bad job of like portraying it, right? Like we saw Josh McCauley, say in his in the pregame press conferences this week, tongue twister there. He was talking about like how it was good that he's having all these players opt out, and it's the players that don't want to be here, and it's good for the team chemistry. And you got Kevin Sumlin dragging Drew Dixon across the ground, saying he played 70-something snaps and he didn't even know he was on the field. Like that's not something you say as a head coach. That like like you don't say that. That sounds like something is like he's on his way out and he's just getting his money's worth in. Like you don't say that stuff. Like it's one thing to chew out a player, and it's another to go out in front of the media and just call him out, like in front of everybody. Like that's not something that tells me that this is a good locker room culture. You know what I mean? Like even if we don't know exactly what it is, like they're not doing a good job of showing us, what is actually going on. Like if there is a good locker room culture, they're not showing it to us. Like we're only seeing the bad parts here. Like there's like this brand of Arizona is just so like this is what you sell to your recruits. Like, when you come here, Arizona has none of that. They don't have cool uniforms. They don't have, they don't have anything to really build off of. Like, it's just a shame. Like, you would think that, okay, sure, this team is losing, but at least we're building something internally here so that we can, improve on it in the future. I don't think that's getting better either. Like, there's just so many things wrong here. Like, you would expect to at least see, some sort of a brand being built while this team is in rebuilding mode, you can say, or is he's at least losing. But it doesn't seem like that's happening either. It's tough.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, if the players in the locker room like aren't together as a unit and as a team, then like, how can they get anybody outside of the locker room to believe in them or think they're going to improve each game?
Mhm.
Like that's just like what Macaulay said. That's just like lose. That's just a loser and losing energy. And like that doesn't winning doesn't happen that way. And getting back to like what someone has said about like Dixon and like I've heard of the way he's been talking post game after the last few games. And just like his attitude, like he doesn't seem that like pissed off. Like it's kind of weird. Like when hearing him talk, like and he just keeps telling the players, "Oh, bro, we got to practice harder, this and that." But like that just doesn't that message doesn't seem like it's working. I mean, as we see the results.
Yeah, I just really think that like the problem of this program is deeper than just the on the field performances. Like, where do you start pointing the fingers? If you want to say it's the coaching staff, like you hear the excuses about oh we can't fire Kevin Sumlin because you have to buy out his contract and that's money that we don't have. Like the school has billions of dollars in endowments. Like you could figure that out if you really really wanted to. Like there's something like internally wrong here. It's not just let's just get a new fresh recruiting class to come in here. Like something like deeper is happening here. Like I don't know if it's like I think it's time for a coaching change, but it's just like when and who is going to replace Kevin Sumlin. It's just so tough. Like this team is just not in a good state right now, and the problem is so much deeper than just this losing streak and maybe these players just aren't good enough. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, and like you said, the losing streak, like how many games is it going to take until everyone just gets sick and tired? The AD gets sick and tired of just continually underperforming and losing week in and week out. Like that's just not acceptable. And I believe that after this season, multiple other players that are talented, like you mentioned, like Brightwell and Gunnell and other talented offensive players could transfer.
Oh, don't even say Gunnell transfer. And that
Like
don't even
my
say
biggest
that.
question is, if you were a player, like, would you want to play in this program?
Like I think the way that Grant Gunnell talks, it doesn't seem like he's one of the guys that would bail out on his team like that. But I get it. At some point you got to be selfish and think about your NFL career. Like you're not getting, as many opportunities here at Arizona. If some SEC team comes knocking at the door, like you have to give it that consideration, right? Like I don't see Gunnell as being one of those guys to just kind of walk out. But like seriously, like that's not something we should be taking for granted. Like Gunnell could easily play for a better team. Like he's a great quarterback.
Yeah, and as you said, NFL host, as in J.J. Taylor last year was one of the best running backs at Arizona over the last few seasons, and he didn't even get drafted, as we know. And it's just unfortunate. When you see those results, it's just very. It doesn't make somebody that has NFL potential like I think Grant Gunnell has, and I do think he will be in the NFL if he is in a better situation. Then like being here just doesn't seem like it's working, obviously.
Yeah, well, why don't we stay on the topic of Grant Gunnell? As we alluded to earlier, the gigantic losing streak is just and a couple of opt-outs is, just some of the things that Arizona's dealing with right now is if things could not get any worse. Starting quarterback Grant Gunnell injured his shoulder on the very first play of the game. He took a hard hit and landed on that throwing shoulder. He didn't return to the game, and freshman Will Plummer came in and played the rest of the snaps of that game. And someone said that his injury is not season ending, and he wouldn't officially rule him out for this game this week against Colorado. But I don't know. There's 3 games left in the season. ASU after this Colorado game, and then that cross division game at the end of the year. I don't know. Like if just give me your thoughts here, Ryan. Like if Grant Gunnell isn't 100% ready, like is there any point in playing him? Even if he is 100% healthy, is there any point in even playing him the rest of the season?
No, there's not one positive thing that Grant Gunnell can take from playing these last few games of this season. We already saw in the first few games that he's talented and what he can do and what we think he can do in his career in college. And yeah, like this year is basically a wash anyway. It's with COVID-19, with them giving players an extra year of eligibility, as we know, it just doesn't benefit somebody like that who has all the potential in the world right now to play in these last few games where they're most likely going to get beat up really bad. Playing a 3-0 Colorado team who is favored by a touchdown right now, and then after them playing ASU, who hasn't played a lot of football this year, but the football we have seen them play was very good against USC earlier in the year. And yeah, I can't find a positive from Grant Gunnell playing again this season.
Yeah, if there's, I honestly, I think Kevin Sumlin has kept this, this one really close to the belt. I think he's more injured than, people are talking, and leading him on. Like, we've seen that injury from previous quarterbacks before, where he gets sacked and lands on that shoulder. Like, that's a broken collarbone almost every time. Like, that's not something you're going to come back from this week. Like, I don't think at all he's playing this week, and he really shouldn't. Like, I don't see any value in him just playing not only this week, but just the rest of the season. Like, they really should just shut him down for the rest of the year. Like, this definitely seems like an injury that's going to linger the rest of the season. Like, you're just throwing him out there, at 75, 80% health. Like, what is the point in that? Like, Arizona isn't playing for anything anymore. Like, this season is done, like you said, like, unless somehow they win the next 3 games. But, like, that is just a long shot, especially after seeing that UCLA game. Like, this season it also just doesn't count towards your eligibility as well. So, like, we can see him play here the next 3 years if he wanted to. So the only real argument is that, to play Grant Gunnell is so he can get more reps. Well, that's not really a thing because he'll be here for 3 more years. Like, you can make the better argument that it'll be better for Will Plummer and, some of these other guys to get playing time instead because, as soon as Grant Gunnell comes back healthy, he's going to get the first team reps. So it's like, you're basically, I don't know. I don't think he should be playing just because, he's dealing with that injury. And the other thing, too, is just like, this O-line is terrible. Like, that's not something that was something that I forgot to bring up in our first topic. But that is something that, if you throw him behind that offensive line, like, you're just feeding him to the wolves. Like, that offensive line has just been so underwhelming this season. Like, that was not something that we all expected. At least I didn't expect. You look at the guys that are on that offensive line, and it's like, these dudes have all been here for at least a year or two. They've been playing together. Some of these guys are grad transfers. Like, they should not be having any issues. Like, these are experienced guys. And the fact that they're giving up, 11 or 12 sacks in the 3 games and, leading the conference in most sacks, like, that is unacceptable. Like, you can't have that. Like, with the experience and the and potential talent that's on this offensive line, like, it's just bad. So, like, if you throw Grant Gunnell out there behind that offensive line, like, it could get even worse. Like, he could get even more injured. You could even make the argument that if Grant Gunnell was in that game against UCLA last week, that it would have been even worse than the stats would have shown. I think they had, 2 or 3 sacks, I think UCLA had against Arizona, but it could have easily been 4 or 5 if Gunnell was behind there because, Gunnell isn't exactly a snail, but like, he's not an extremely mobile quarterback. Like, Will Plummer can use his legs. We saw him a few times use his legs to escape the pocket and elude some pressure. So, like, those stats could easily be more than 11 or 12 sacks. So, like, it's just really not worth it to throw Gunnell out there and just, like I said, just feeding him to the wolves behind that offensive line is bad.
Yeah, and as you just said, putting him back out there is basically just throwing him back into the fire. And to me, if I'm in Gunnell's family, if I'm an advisor for him or anyone he talks to about football, because I know, as you see with Gunnell's attitude, he's not gonna like say like, oh, I don't want to play,
Oh, he's gonna play. He wants to play.
Yeah, or he's not gonna say that. So it's gonna be on coaching. So if they like want him to play, so like he's gonna play. And to me, that's the last nail in the coffin because you can't jeopardize a guy like Gunnell who's very talented. By like, and he has a long career ahead of him. Hopefully, you can't just throw him into just this mess, as you said. I mean, it's not all based on Sumlin. I mean, the O-line sucks. I mean, it all goes back to coaching and recruiting. But yeah, like Gunnell doesn't gain anything from this, I believe.
Yeah, I have to completely agree. But I really don't think this is something we should be worrying about because I honestly don't think he'll play another snap this season. Like I said earlier, I really think this is an injury that is, not being talked about as much. Like, I think this is a more serious injury than someone and, the athletic, the trainers have been talking about. Like, those injuries, we saw the play. That dude landed right on his shoulder, like, right, where that pad isn't there. Like, that's a broken collarbone almost every single time when we've seen that in previous quarterbacks doing that. So I don't really expect him to play another snap this season. And I honestly don't. I hope he doesn't play another snap this season because I'm looking ahead in the future here, and I want him to be healthy. If this was something, if even if it wasn't a broken collarbone and he's feeling okay, he wants to go out there, and then he goes out there and hurts that shoulder even more. Like, and then he has to have like season-ending surgery and miss a year. Like that would just be so bad. Like that'd be so problematic. And like what are you playing for? Like there's nothing to play for here at the end of the season. Like there's just no point in putting Gunnell in, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This season is it's just a lost season, and it's what we expected to see from this group. I mean, the worst thing for this season was that first game against USC. Like that just gave me, along with everyone else, just false hope, more false hope that this team could actually be really good. And hearing the players, after the game, stumbling, they were like angry about that. It was weird. They were angry about a 3-point loss, but when they get blown out the past few weeks, they seem like someone seems kind of fine with it, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
When you lose to a top 25 team in the country, you're like act like it's the end of the world. Like, oh, we needed to win that game. And against Washington, they were down by like 30 points, came back, cut it within 20, but still, like this isn't acceptable. And I think that just pressure from Hiki needs to be put on Sumlin in the coming weeks.
I mean, I've heard the argument too that maybe Dave Hiki is the problem, and we know they need a new athletic director. But I mean, that's a whole nother topic of discussion. We'll move on here to our final topic and preview Saturday's game against Colorado. I mean, how do you see this one playing out, Ryan? I mean, the line is 7 points in favor of Colorado, so the Wildcats are underdogs in this one. Again, they're always the underdogs in the official Vegas lines. Like it's also their first home game since that season opener against USC. So I mean, what do you see in this one? Is there any chance that this losing streak gets broken this week?
It depends on Grant Gunnell. I mean, if Will Plummer looked good last week, and I think he had some good runs, and he had 2 picks, but he's a young quarterback, freshman, as he said, so it'll take time for him to grow. I mean, I believe he'll be better this week, but if he's the starter, I think they're going to lose by. I would take Colorado -7 if Plummer's playing, but my pick switches the opposite side if Gunnell plays.
I mean, I actually thought Will Plummer did an all right job, especially, for the circumstances he was put in, a true freshman coming in on the second play of the game. Like, what more do you expect? Like, sure, he threw those 2 picks, but the wheels were already off the wagon in that game. Like, that was both of those picks came, late in the fourth quarter after, that miscue with the field goal attempt. And oh my God, that was so bad. So like those 2 interceptions already, like the game was over as soon as they botched that field goal hold. Like, so that's when those 2 picks happened. So like, I thought he did all right. I think the stats look a little bit worse than what he actually played, but I don't know. I think even if Grant Gunnell plays this game, I still don't feel very confident in this one. Like, I don't know. It's just so crazy because I pinned this game as, an automatic win at the start of this season. Like, I thought Colorado was the only team worse than Arizona. And like, Colorado just had a ton of success, so far this season. And, notoriously Arizona has had good success against Colorado. So I was like, oh yeah, this has to be an easy win. But the momentum is just completely shifted. Like Arizona is going 0-3, just this complete opposite direction. And Colorado's 3-0, going the complete opposite direction. Like these 2 teams are just momentum wise, just going 2 different ways. Like, I don't know. I just don't see, I am nervous about this game because the momentum is just not there for Arizona, and it's all in favor of Colorado. It doesn't even matter if it's a road game or a home game. Like there's just too much momentum for Colorado going in this one.
I totally agree with you, but I still believe that there's a slim chance. Like, it's just hard for me to sit here and really say that they're going to go. They're not going to win a game this season. Go 0-6. That just seems. I think one of these games they're just going to pull out. They're going to pull out. And I mean, this, as good as Colorado's playing, this is pretty much their best shot left to me. I mean, like against Arizona State, like I give them a slim chance for that game, and I don't know who they're playing. I don't know who they're playing in that last week, but
It'll
as
probably be Cal. I think the way that the standings are kind of shifting out, it'll probably be, Arizona will be the last team in the South, and I think the North, it'll probably be Cal or Washington State at the bottom of that one. But yeah, I don't know.
yeah, as all these teams have pretty much been competitive besides Arizona. Like that's just the sad part when you look at it. All these teams, Oregon State, Washington State looked all right in the past few weeks. Like all these teams that we didn't think were going to be good just look decent. And one last thing I want to say about David Hickey, the athletic director, is that I get that he gets a lot of blame too for this. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, to me, is he's not running that football program. He's not in those rooms making decisions, recruiting players on game day. And to me, it's about the play. It's about the players and the coaches in that locker room, on that field during the games. That's how you're going to win games. I know it starts from the top up, but I believe in college, he does get to me a lot of blame for hiring someone. Don't get me wrong, because Rodriguez, like, I don't know if they should have let him go. So
Yeah, Red Rod brought Arizona to a bowl game almost every single year that he was there. Like, I don't exactly know what that was kind of like one of those changes where we're okay with Red Rod right now, but Kevin Sumlin, this is a very hit or miss pick. He could either be really, really good for us or really, really bad for us. Like, I don't know. Looking back on it, hindsight is 2020, right? But like, I don't know if Red Rod was needed to be out. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I get where the thinking's coming from. They were thinking that with Rodriguez, they were like here bowl every year, and then with Sumlin, they could get over that hump because looking at his past success, I get that, but it just you need to cut ties eventually because do you know how long? I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know how long his contract has left?
Someone's or he,
Someone's.
I think after this year, I think so it would be this year and then one more season before he would become. I'm pretty sure I probably should have fact checked that before we hopped on here, but I'm pretty sure that's what his contract situation is.
Yeah, but anyway, I would give like a 10% shot he's the head coach at the start of next season.
Yeah.
I honestly think he'll finish this season because it's a short season. Like you can't really cut tie. If you cut ties, then I guess maybe the last like 2 games, but I would find that hard to believe. But right after that game, he should be fired within an hour.
I think if this was normal circumstances, someone would have been gone last week. But I think because of the pandemic and the shortened schedule and all this random stuff, I think you have to cut him some slack. But I want to make one more point about this Colorado game. I know we kind of just went off on a tangent there. We weren't quite done with the previous segments. We still had a little bit to say, but I want to make one more point about the Colorado game. I think the biggest thing for me is the reason why I'm nervous about this one is that just because Colorado's run game is very good, like Jarek Bouchard is a very good running back. Arizona has not had good success about running backs. Like you saw Dimitri Felton just tear them up last week. They got torched by Washington the week before, who has by far the best run game in the conference, one of the best run games in the nation, really. So like Arizona has not had good success against good running backs and against good running games. So that's my biggest worry is I think this is going to be another one of those games where they're just going to get torched by this one running back, and it's going to be the tail of the tape.
Yeah, I totally agree. I agree with that. I think Colorado is going to win, I would say 37-24.
Yeah, I think Colorado covers the spread as well. We're running out of time, though. I think that's where we're going to end things today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. Reminder that we are live here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. for you Arizona folks if you're in the state of Arizona watching us. We're on Mountain Standard Time now. I will also be hosting Wildcat Dash tomorrow with Kieran Murphy from Buffalo Dash tomorrow to preview Saturday's game. So tune in for that. We also write columns now over at sportspac12.com, where Ryan Wohl writes a column following our weekly shows every single week. So you can check that out. You can also check us out on our website over at dashsports.tv, where we post all of our full shows and our clips and highlights to that website. You can follow us on social media as well: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. YouTube. We're on Spotify as well. We're everywhere, so you can find us everywhere. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on Wildcat Dash. But if we don't, we'll see you next week.
Peace.